The soldier was thrown out of the hospital lobby like he was nothing. No rank, no respect, no mercy. Just an old man in worn civilian clothes standing under the cold fluorescent lights, while a security guard shoved him toward the exit. "Sir, this area is for important personnel only," the guard sneered. A few people nearby paused, then smiled, then laughed. One man even lifted his phone and started recording, hoping for a viral moment. What nobody realized was that the quiet man they were humiliating had once been in rooms where entire wars were planned with a single signature. And in his pocket was a phone that hadn't been activated in years. Until that moment, he didn't react at first, not because he was weak, but because he had spent decades learning when to stay silent, and when silence becomes something far more dangerous than anger. His name was Commander Elias Carter. Retired, at least officially, the kind of retirement that exists only on paper. He lived alone in a small apartment on the edge of the city. No luxury, no attention, just a simple life that most people would call invisible. He woke up early every morning without fail. Coffee, walking, reading old military reports he no longer needed. And sometimes visiting hospitals where soldiers he once commanded were still fighting battles long after the war ended. He never asked for recognition, never used his past for privilege. In fact, most people around him assumed he was just another aging veteran trying to stay busy. But inside him, something never fully retired. A structure of discipline so deep it shaped the way he breathed. A mind that still calculated outcomes before situations even unfolded. And a connection buried under layers of classification that most generals in active service would never be allowed to access. Inside the hospital that day, none of that mattered to the security staff. The man blocking his way was named Briggs. Young, aggressive, recently promoted. The type of authority that hadn't been tested by real consequences yet. He stood in front of Elias with folded arms, blocking the corridor leading to intensive care. "Sir, I've already told you. This wing is restricted." Elias responded calmly. "I am here to see patient 47B. He is under my care authorization." Briggs smirked. "Your care authorization? Listen, old man, this isn't a retirement home. You don't just walk into restricted zones because you feel like it." A nurse nearby hesitated. She quietly tried to speak. "Actually, sir, his name was on the approved." Briggs cut her off instantly. "Not anymore." That single word changed everything. Elias looked at him for a moment. Not angry, not offended, just studying him, like a soldier assessing a situation that had already gone wrong. Then Briggs raised his voice louder, making sure others could hear. "I don't know how you got in here, but you need to leave immediately before I call security." That was when the humiliation began. People started watching. Phones came out. Whispers spread. "Who is this guy? Why is he arguing with security? He looks homeless." Briggs stepped closer, lowering his voice with a smile meant to embarrass. "People like you always think rules don't apply to them." A few soft laughs followed. Elias didn't respond. He simply looked at the badge on Briggs' chest, then at the hospital security cameras, then at the corridor leading deeper inside. Something in his expression shifted, but only slightly. Not anger. Something colder. More precise. The kind of calm that appears right before a controlled response is executed. Slowly, Elias reached into his coat pocket. Briggs noticed immediately. "Don't reach for anything." Elias stopped, then pulled out an old black device. Small. Worn. No branding visible. Not a phone anyone would recognize. The laughter in the room grew louder. "What is that? A pager from the 90s? Someone joked. Even Briggs laughed now. "This is embarrassing. Sir, I don't know what game you're playing, but..." Elias pressed a single button and stopped listening. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Just silence. Then the device blinked once. Green. Every sound in the room felt like it lowered in volume. Not physically, but emotionally, as if something unseen had just shifted. Inside a regional defense communications center miles away, a technician froze mid-task. "Sir, we just got an encrypted signal." The supervisor turned. "Source." The technician's face went pale. "Level 7 override channel." But that system was shut down years ago. Another monitor lit up. Then another. Across multiple regions, dormant protocols began to wake. Not randomly. Not by error. But in sequence. Like a system remembering something it was never supposed to forget. Back at the hospital, Elias placed the device back into his pocket and turned slightly as if to leave. That's when Briggs stepped forward again. You are not going anywhere until we verify your identity. Two guards moved in behind him, blocking the exit. Elias stopped walking. The entire hallway was watching now. Phones recording. Whispers rising. Briggs leaned in. You think you can just walk in here and... Elias interrupted softly. No. One word. Not loud. Not aggressive. Final. And then he walked forward. Straight through the space between the guards. Neither of them stopped him. They couldn't explain why. But their bodies refused to move. Like instinct had overridden command. Briggs turned sharply. Stop him. No one moved fast enough. Because at that exact moment, outside the hospital, the first sound of helicopters arrived. Low. Deep. Unmistakable. A nurse near the window slowly turned her head. Then froze. Why are there military helicopters above the building? Within minutes, the sky changed completely. Black transport helicopters circled overhead. Not emergency units. Not police. Military command aircraft. The kind only deployed when something has crossed a threshold most civilians never even hear about. Briggs rushed outside. This is ridiculous. Who authorized a military response? But no one answered him. Because even city authorities were suddenly silent. On the ground, armored vehicles rolled into position. The entire street was sealed within seconds. Traffic frozen. Civilians pushed back. A controlled lockdown forming in real time. No chaos. No confusion. Just execution. Then a convoy stopped directly in front of the hospital. The doors opened, and a senior military officer stepped out. He looked at the building, then at the crowd, then at Elias Carter standing quietly at the entrance. The officer immediately stiffened and saluted. Hard. Instant. Like muscle memory triggered by something far deeper than protocol. The entire area went silent. Briggs stood frozen. What is going on? He whispered. The officer didn't look at him. He only looked at Elias and spoke clearly. Commander Carter, we received your authorization signal. A pause. Then the words that shattered everything around them. Full protocol response has been activated. Briggs shook his head in disbelief. No, he's just a retired. The officer finally turned slightly toward him. His expression cold. Controlled. This man designed the framework you rely on for every classified military response in this region. Silence hit like impact. The officer continued. And you denied him access to a secured medical facility while a classified patient under his direct protection is inside. Briggs went pale instantly. The realization didn't come slowly. It collapsed on him all at once. Elias didn't react. No satisfaction. No pride. No emotion on the surface. Only focus. He spoke quietly. I didn't come here for authority. He looked toward the hospital entrance. I came for my soldier. That was it. The officer nodded once and immediately turned. Execute priority extraction. Within moments, the hospital changed from a public facility into a controlled military operation zone. Every corridor secured. Every access point locked. Every movement coordinated. And the patient Elias had come for was evacuated under highest priority clearance. Briggs was removed from the premises without resistance. No shouting. No explanation needed anymore. He had already been erased from relevance inside the system that was now active around him. Outside, the helicopters began to lift again. The convoy slowly pulled back. Order restored. Not chaos. Authority. Absolute and silent. Elias walked away from the hospital alone. No escort. No announcement. Just footsteps fading into the distance as the world behind him tried to process what it had just witnessed. A young nurse stood near the entrance, still shaken. She called out softly, "Sir, who are you really?" Elias stopped for a moment. The wind moved through the empty street. The helicopters faded into the sky. He didn't turn around. He only answered in a calm, worn voice that carried years of history buried inside it. Someone who was never meant to be forgotten, only hidden. And then he walked away.